Okay, good morning, everyone. We are now streaming live on YouTube so that way the public can have access to these court proceedings. My name is Judge Farrey. I am with Clayton County Magistrate Court, and today I will be presiding. I'm sorry about that. I was getting some feedback. Can you all hear me just fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So like I mentioned, my name is Judge Farrey with the Clayton County Magistrate Court, and I will be presiding over your first appearance hearing today. So I'm going to be making some important announcements this morning. So make sure you listen up carefully because these announcements will apply to most of you, if not all of you. Today is what is called your first appearance. We are not here to try your case, nor are we here to take a plea today. During your first appearance hearing, I will inform you of those charges that have been brought against you. I will advise you of certain rights that you have in this proceeding and throughout all other proceedings. I will inform you of the bond amount if I am authorized to set bond for you. I will also let you know when your next court date will be, which will be the preliminary hearing date if it's necessary. And I will also advise you whether or not you qualify to have a court-appointed attorney to represent you in your case. Now, you do have the right to remain silent and say nothing. But should you give up this right, anything you say during this proceeding may be used against you if this case goes to trial. During this proceeding and all other proceedings, you will have the following rights. You will have the right to remain silent and presume innocence until the state proves your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to indictment by a grand jury for most felonies, or if you're charged with a misdemeanor, you have the right to an indictment by accusation. You have the right to a speedy and public trial by jury. You have the right to see, hear, and cross-examine witnesses who are called to testify against you. You have the right to compel the attendance of witnesses in your own behalf by subpoena. You have the right to testify and offer other evidence in your own defense if you choose to do so. However, if you choose not to do so, there will be no presumption of guilt raised against you. And you have the right to have an attorney represent you in these proceedings. Now, some of you will be allowed to post what is called an unrestricted bond. This bond may be posted in three ways. Number one, a cash bond. Number two, a commercial bond. Number three, a property bond. So if you decide to post a cash bond, you will pay the full amount of the bond in cash to the sheriff's office plus any applicable mandated fees that they are required to charge. The sheriff will hold that cash until after the final disposition of your case. Then the cash bond will be returned to the person that posted the bond. That's the first option. If you decide to not pay your bond by cash, you can post what is called a commercial bond by going through a commercial bonding company that is approved by the sheriff's department. Now, these are private companies who charge different fees to post the bond for you. The bonding companies usually charge up to 15% of the total amount of the bond as their fee for their services. Once you pay this fee to the bonding company, you do not get this money back. So for example, if your bond is $1,000, you can choose to post that bond by paying $1,000 in cash to the sheriff's office plus any fees. That money is returned to you. However, if you choose to post bond using a commercial bonding company and your bond amount is $1,000, if you call the commercial bonding company and they tell you that their fee is 12%, then you have to pay them 12% of $1,000, which is $120. If they tell you it's 15%, you have to pay them $150. and then they will post the $1,000 bond for you. And the fee that you pay to the commercial bonding company, you do not get that back. Now, don't ask me how much the percentage is, because it varies from commercial bonding company to bonding company. So you'll have to get on the phone, talk to some different bonding companies, and find out what their fees are. I do not know what their fees are. The third option is you can post the bond using a property bond. And you will need to find someone who has property with net equity in their property for at least 3 times the total amount of the bond. So again, using my example, if your bond is $1,000 and you want to use a property to post that bond, then that property's equity needs to have at least 3 times the $1,000 amount. So there needs to be at least $3,000 worth of net equity in that property in order for you to use a property bond. So you need to think about what option you want to use when determining whether or not you're going to go through a bonding company, property bond, or cash bond. Now, if you are given a bond here today, some of you will have special conditions on your bond that prohibit you from contacting certain people or going to or around certain places. And this special condition will be listed on your bond order. For example, if I tell you that you are to have no contact with someone, that means you are to stay away, absolutely, directly or indirectly, by mail, email, pager, telephone, third person, social media, stay away from their home, their work, or any of their immediate family members of any witnesses. That's what I mean by stay away. If I tell you not to go on a particular premises, then you cannot return to that particular premises. Now, if you share a residence with the alleged victim, and I tell you that you are to have no contact with the alleged victim, and I also tell you that you can't go back to that particular residence that you share with the alleged victim, I will give you the option to schedule an appointment with the sheriff of Clayton County within 10 days of being released from jail, so you can go back to the residence to retrieve some of your personal belongings that's not in dispute. So I will give you that opportunity to do that. Now, if you violate your bond condition, your bond will be revoked and you will not be entitled to another bond while you wait for trial. And there may be an additional charge of aggravated stalking, influencing a witness, or any other charges that the law may provide. You could also be sentenced up to 10 years in prison and fined up to $20,000. So please take these bond conditions seriously. For family members who will be assisting you in posting your bond, they will be provided information about your bond amount after we have concluded the first appearance calendar here this morning. Now, keep in mind, however, if your family member is the named victim on the warrant and that there is a special condition in place that you are to have no contact with that family member, he or she will not be allowed to post the bond for you. You will have to find someone else. Now, some of you are charged with offenses for which this court is not authorized by law to set a bond for you. In this event, I will give you your bond hearing date, which I can tell you now, if I deny your bond hearing date is going to be September 24th, 2021. And so during that bond hearing date, you will appear before a superior court judge and you can discuss the issue of bond at that time. If you are currently on active probation, this court may not be authorized to set a bond for you. We will give your probation officer an opportunity to decide if he or she will file a warrant to revoke your probation. And this is typically done during your preliminary hearing. Now, your preliminary hearing is the court date that I'll be giving to each and every one of you. The preliminary hearing date is a probable cause hearing date. And the purpose of the preliminary hearing date is to determine whether there's enough evidence or probable cause to keep you detained on your charges until such time that your case goes to trial. Now, the purpose of that preliminary hearing, as I mentioned, is to determine whether or not there's enough evidence to keep you in jail. If you bond out, your preliminary hearing date is automatically waived because you're no longer in jail. But if you do not bond out, that preliminary hearing date will remain in place and you will appear before a Superior Court judge to determine whether or not probable cause exists for us to continue to detain you. Now, for those of you who are charged with misdemeanors only, the preliminary hearing date that I will be assigning you is going to be September 21st, if you have misdemeanors only. Now, if you're charged with both felonies and misdemeanors, or you're just charged with a felony, your preliminary hearing date for your felony will be, or excuse me, for your case will be September 20th. And I will repeat these dates when you come up before me one by one. Now, keep in mind that this is a formal court proceeding. We are streaming live on YouTube. These recordings are accessible. So be mindful of what you state to this court once you come before me. Also, even though we are appearing by video conference, I still expect each and every one of you to conduct yourself respectfully as if we were physically in the courtroom. If you do not conduct yourself respectfully and I cannot proceed with your hearing today, then I will not address your case today and I will send you back and then we'll try again tomorrow. So please keep that in mind. Now, if I could go ahead and have each and every one of you raise your right hands while I swear you in. Do you swear and affirm that the statements you give before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do and lower your hands. Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and start with the female inmates.
Yes, ma'am. The first one we're gonna have Miss Barton. No, Miss Alexander.
Okay, I was gonna say I have Miss Alexander on my list. Excuse me. Okay, are you Michelle Alexander? Okay, you've been charged with one count of battery. Your bond has been set at $5,000 because you were previously convicted of battery back in 2016 in Coweta County. This is being upgraded from a misdemeanor to a felony. So this is a felony charge. Your bond is set at $5,000 as I've mentioned. Do you understand what I've stated as far as your charge and your bond amount? Speak up for me just a little bit. I can't hear you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You do have a special condition to your bond, and that is to stay away from Dianera Abrams, and you are to not return to 5724 Riverdale Road in Clayton County, Georgia. If that is a shared residence, I will allow you to go back and retrieve any undisputed property. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your bond condition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Yes, Your Honor.
I have reviewed your application for a court-appointed attorney, and I have approved that request. So I have appointed an attorney to represent you. Your next hearing date is your preliminary hearing, which will be scheduled for September 21st, 2021. But that court date will be waived in the event that you do bond out, just as you've mentioned. Do you have any questions for me?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may be excused. Have a good day.
Next is Miss Barboza.
Are you Akeisha Barboza?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, you have been charged with one count of simple battery. That bond has been set at $2,500. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your charge and your bond amount?
Yes.
Okay, do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Yes.
You do have a special condition to your bond, and that is to stay away and have no contact with Garen Smith or Jaron Smith, and you cannot return to 7551 Chancey Lane in Riverdale, Georgia. I have stated here that you can go back and retrieve any personal items within 10 days of being released from the sheriff's department and you have to be accompanied by a sheriff. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your bond condition?
Yes.
Okay. I have reviewed your application for court-appointed counsel, and I have approved your request, and I'm appointing an attorney to represent you. Your next hearing date is your preliminary hearing date, which is scheduled for September 21st, 2021. Do you have any questions for me?
Ma'am.
Okay, you may be excused. Have a good day.
Next is Ms. Haviz.
Okay, are you Shanoa Hafiz?
Yes.
Okay, ma'am, you've been charged with maximum speeding, obstructing an officer, too fast for conditions, reckless driving, and license not on person. Your total bond amount between all of those charges is $4,500. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your charges and your bond amount?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have reviewed your application for a court-appointed counsel, and I've approved your request, so I am appointing an attorney to represent you. Your next court date is your preliminary hearing date, which is being scheduled for September 21st, 2021. If you bond out, that court date will be waived, and you'll receive a new notice in the mail. Do you have any questions, Ms. Hafiz?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you may be excused. Have a good day.
Next is Ms. Harris.
Are you Aaron Harris?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. Ms. Harris, you've been charged with one count of battery. That bond has been set at $5,000. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your charge and your bond amount?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Ma'am.
There are some special conditions to your bond, and that is to stay away and have no contact with, it looks like the name is Keenan Hunt. Are you familiar with Keenan Hunt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you are to not return to 10346 Wisteria Lane in Jonesboro, Georgia. If that is a shared residence, you will be able to go back and retrieve any personal belongings. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as those conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
I have reviewed your application for a court-appointed counsel, and I've approved it. So I am appointing an attorney to represent you. Your next court date is being scheduled for September 21st, 2021. If you bond out, that court date will be waived and you'll receive a new court notice in the mail. Just make sure you update your address with the court. You have any questions for me, Ms. Harris?
No, ma'am.
You sure?
I just wanted to know that being that is where it's my property, when would I be able to go and get all my kids' clothing and stuff? 'Cause
So, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
where
ahead.
that's where I reside, as in I let my brother come stay with me. I'm just trying to figure out when I can go get my kids' clothes.
Is Keenan Hunt your brother?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. And so, both of you were living at that residence, correct?
I filed an eviction, and yes, ma'am, I filed an eviction, but it didn't go through. I guess he hasn't been served yet.
Okay, but you both are living there, is that right? Okay. When did you file that? Was that in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am. On the 30th.
Okay, when you say it didn't go through, what do you mean by that?
I haven't put the served him on my door yet. So he's gotten word that I filed the eviction, which caused this, but he did not get served yet.
Okay, so Ms. Harris, and who, is it just you and him that live there?
Oh, it's me and my 4 kids that live there.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna leave the condition in here that you can't have any contact with them. But what I've done is I removed the condition about not going back to the property, based on what you've stated to me. However, if he is still there and you can't have any contact with him, then technically you can't go back. You see what I'm saying? But if for some reason he's not there, he gets evicted, he leaves, whatever the case may be, you can certainly go back because I'm removing that condition. I understand that's where you reside with your 4 kids. But keep in mind, you can't have any contact with them. So be careful about how you go back there. But what I will do, at least, I'm still going to keep the condition in here that you are allowed to go back to at least retrieve your personal belongings if he's still physically residing there.
And I can get that, get a sheriff, I can call before I go to get somebody to be there while I retrieve my items.
Yes, you absolutely have to call the sheriff's department to go back. Okay. Just do that within 10 days of being released if he's still there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good day.
Next is Mr. Appleton.
Okay. Are you Aaron Appleton? Okay. And so just speak up for me so I can hear you through your mask. You've been charged with 1 count of criminal trespass damage to property. Your bond is $1,500. Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your charge and your bond amount?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Yes, ma'am.
There are some special conditions to your bond, and that is to stay away from Opal Broadwaite, and you are not to return to 8189 Greens Court in Jonesboro, Georgia. Do you understand those special conditions, sir? Okay. I have reviewed your application for a court-appointed attorney. I do find that you qualify, so I am appointing an attorney to represent you. Your next court date is going to be the preliminary hearing date, and that is September 21st, 2021. But if you do bond out, that court date will be waived and you'll receive a new notice in the mail. Do you have any questions, Mr. Appleton?
No.
All right, you may be excused. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next is Mr. Arthur.
Are you Jason Arthur?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Arthur. So you've been charged with 1 count of driving away without paying for gas. That is a misdemeanor. That bond is $2,000. And then there's 1 charge of financial transaction card fraud. That bond amount is $5,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is charged as a felony.
Yes,
Do you understand what I've mentioned as far as your bond and your charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your total, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just asking, so you was about to tell me my total whenever I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Your total between both charges is $7,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe you'll be able to make bond?
Yes, ma'am. I've actually already signed the bond paperwork. I was just waiting for an actual amount.
Okay, so there is a special condition, Mr. Arthur, and that is to not go back to the gas station Sun Petro. And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
located at 132 Forest Parkway in Forest Park, Georgia. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have reviewed your application for a court-appointed counsel. I
Ma'am,
find that,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I already have a counsel for this situation. His name is David Gaza. I don't know if you needed that.
No, I don't need his name, but I'm going to indicate on here that you plan to hire your own attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I've indicated that. So let your attorney know that your preliminary hearing date is being scheduled for September 20th, 2021. But if you bond out, that court date will be waived and then you'll receive a new court date in the mail.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood? Do you have any questions, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, have a good day. Thank you.
Good.